So when we left off in the last part, we generated all the base scripts for creating the new items, and now we can start looking at the item container itself, which should contain all our items. So we should make a new script. As you can see, we have this item container here. So we should go back into Unity and we should right click and create a new C# script, and this one should be item container. And when you've created that, you can double click on it. As before, this one shouldn't inherit from mono behavior, so we can just delete that inheritance, and we can delete the functions inside here. So let's compare. We can see that we have a weapons list, an equipment list, and a consumables list, and these lists here divides all our different items into categories. So everything that goes into the weapons list will be listed under the category weapons, and everything that goes into equipment will be listed under equipment, and everything that goes into consumables will be listed under consumables. So maybe you don't want to divide it into different lists, maybe you just want one list, so you can just make one list if you want that, or you may want to divide into more lists. So that's basically what the first part here shows. So let's make the item container, which we did, and create 3 lists. And as you can see, there's a little minus in front of them here. Maybe it's hard to see, there's a minus, which means that these are private. So we're going to make a private list item. So you can see it contains items here, and it's going to be called weapons. And I need to write list and right click on it and resolve. So if you don't have the ability to make a list, it's because you need to include using system.collections.generics here. So if you can't write list, you need to write using system.collection.generics, or right click and resolve if you are using Visual Studio. Equals new list. So here we just call the list constructor, if you remember something from the last video, that we made those constructors, and this is the list constructor. Then we need to make one called equipment and one called consumables. Just gonna copy that and paste it 2 times, and I'm gonna make consumables here. Okay, so now we have our 3 lists. But if we look in here, we can see we have something called get weapons and set weapons, and get equipment, set equipment, get consumables, set consumables. And this is actually just made as functions, but we are working in C#, so we can do that a different way. If we were working in Java, we would do like this: make a public weapon list, weapon list, just be list. I'm tired apparently. List item, and we should get weapons like this and return weapons like that. And then we should make a public one that calls set weapons. But we are not working in Java right now, so if you're working in C# as I am, you can actually make properties instead. Because if we were in Java, we would have to do like this for all of them: public get set, and we'll make a new one, and we would have a void here instead, and we will have item here, and then we would add it to weapons by ourselves like this: weapons.add item like this. So this structure is totally fine, but that's not what we want to do. We want to be able to access it through properties, because we're working in C# and might as well use them. So we can delete this, and instead, even though our UML says get weapons and set weapons, then we can actually do it with properties, because properties are specific to C#, and that's why we don't make them inside UML out here, because UML is a general language for all programming stuff, and properties are specific to C#, so we can't use the properties out here in the UML. So we can right click on weapons, click refactor, encapsulate field, and we can do the same for equipment, and we can do the same for consumables as well. So when you do that, it makes a public property here called weapons, get weapons, and set weapons. We can put them in the bottom here just to make them more divided better. So if you don't have Visual Studio and you can't right click and encapsulate field, then you can simply just write this code by yourself, public list item, consumables, and then get set return consumables here. And we have the same with weapons, public list weapons, then we return weapons up here, and we set weapons to equal to value, this one. And we do the same for equipment, where we are returning the equipment list, and we are setting the equipment list here. So this is the functionality inside this. And as far as I remember, we also need a public constructor here, public item container, empty one without anything. So now we have our container for containing all the items. So what this class is going to do is that we are going to put all our items we're going to create inside this container, and then we're going to serialize them into an XML document. So let's say we have 10 weapons, 10 equipments, and 10 consumables, and then we're going to make this one into an XML document by using a XML serializer, and then we're going to have an XML document with 30 different items in it, for example. So that's what our item container is for. And when we load our XML document, we will also load all the items into these three lists, so that we can grab one of the items and spawn them in our game, for example. So this container is basically the link between the document and our game. So now we can actually start creating the code that will generate our XML document. So if we go into Unity and jump out in our script folder here, we should make a new script. I mentioned in the first video, I noticed I made a mistake. I said that we already have an item manager, but we don't already have an item manager. The one we have is an inventory manager. So we need to create the item manager here. And this item manager here is basically gonna create our items for us. So we're not gonna have it in our game in any way. We are just gonna have a special scene where we can go and create items if we don't want to go to the document ourselves and add stuff. So the item manager is basically just gonna be a way for us to punch in some numbers, click a create button, and then that create button is gonna add a new item to our XML document. So basically we're gonna create a new script here, create C# script item manager, and we're also gonna create a new scene. So if you haven't saved your scene, then save your scene and then say new scene, and in here you're gonna take the item manager and put it on the camera, for example. So we have the item manager there. Actually I'm gonna make an empty object and I'm gonna add the item manager to that one. Just gonna remove it from my camera. Sorry, I changed my mind. I'm gonna rename this to item manager. So now we have our item manager, and we need a button to click so we create our item. So we can say create UI button, and we can basically just place this in the middle of the screen, about there. And this button should just have the text print on it, create item. So I'm not going to do anything fancy, I'm not going to add text boxes and stuff, I'm simply going to do this from a script, 100% from a script, so I'm not going to add all kinds of weird things. You can do that yourself if you want some more fancy application to create your items, but I don't think it's worth it right now. So we have our item manager, double click on it to open it. And then we need to add a whole bunch of stuff in here. So you can see it has all the fields from the other classes here. And these fields here are simply going to be normal fields, not properties or anything. So we can go to the inspector and say this item should have epic quality, it should have this sprite, it should have stack 5 times, and so on. So we're going to go here and we're going to write everything down. So the easy way would be to copy paste it from something else, but let's just do it like this. So we're going to make public item type. We're going to have a public quality, and we have a public string sprite neutral, and public string sprite highlighted. and we have a public integer max size, and we have a public string item name, have a public string description, and what else do we have? We have some public integer intellect, public integer agility, and we have some stamina, and we have strength, and we have some attack speed, so float, and we have some health for some items, have some mana, and as a last thing we have a category, because whenever we create one of these items, because this function here or this script here should create a new item, and we need to know where we need to put it basically. So we could add a category, or we could actually just look at the type. Let's add a category just to be sure. So I'm gonna make a new enumeration up here, and it's just gonna be public enum category, and this is gonna be equipment. Either I'm gonna add it to the equipment category, or I'm gonna add to weapon, or I'm gonna add to consumable. So we also need a variable to hold this, so we're gonna make a public category. There we go. So then we know where to put it, because we need to put it in one of the different lists. Okay, so now we have added all the different types. So if we go out here, you'll see that we have our item manager here. Just let it update for a while. If I remember to save, maybe I didn't save here. There we go. As you can see, we can punch in everything out here, and what I want to be able to do is I want to be able to fill in all these blanks, and when I've filled all those in, I'll be able to click the create item button, and then it creates the item in the XML document for me. So mana, health, or weapon. So as you can see, we have item type here, which is mana, health, and weapon, and we need to change that, because right now we need some other item types available to us. Because I'm gonna add consumable as a type, I'm gonna add main hand, off hand, two hand, and head and neck, and all those things where you can plug in your items, because later we're gonna equip stuff. We would like to be able to recognize a helmet as a helmet, for example, and this is just not gonna cut it as a equipment alone. So before we continue here, I would like to go to our where was it even? Inventory maybe? No. Inside our item script it was. There we go. And I would like to add something to this one, so that we know so we can differ our items better. So instead of mana and health, we are going to have a consumable, and we are going to have a main hand, we're going to have a two hand, going to have an off hand, a shield and stuff. We are going to have some head, and we're going to have neck, we're going to have chest. What else is there? Rings, ring, legs, braces, boots, trinket, and weapon is under main hand, off hand, and so on. So we're going to remove weapon, that's not necessary. There we go. So if we save this now, then you'll see there are some errors here in use. I'm just going to out comment this, we're going to fix it later. Just comment this out, we're going to come back to this and fix it. This is what the save function and load function, we're going to fix that as well. Yes, okay, if you have some empty sweat block, that doesn't matter right now. So let's hop back into our, not item container, but our item manager, if I could find it. There we go. So now when we do this, we should have some other options if it wants to update. Still some errors? Nope. Just need to save and update, I guess. Let's see. There we go. And item manager. So now we have some whole different array of options here. So we can make a main hand, for example, that is epic, and it's a type of weapon, for example. We can say that, and then we can punch in the rest of the things. I would like to move around two things. My item manager here, I would like my max size to go on the other side of item name, so we have all the text coming up first. Save here. Let's see, then these two should switch places. I need to put it one more down. Description is also there, of course, just so it looks better. And it's not important or anything. There we go. So we have all the text here, and we have all the numbers to punch in down here. Okay, so now that when this is in order, we could start creating our document for, or creating the function so we can create our document. Yes, so we're gonna make a public void create item. And the first thing we're going to do is to create an item container, because we need a container to contain all our items. Because first of all, we're going to open up our document, and we're going to load in all the items that are in the document already, so that we can add something to that document by adding something to the item container, and then later put it back into the document. So the reason that we are loading something back and forth is because that we would like to have order in our XML document. And if we append something to the document, it's not gonna be right according to, like, it's not gonna have the right structure. So to get the right structure, we are actually recreating our XML document every time we start our game. So if we have all our weapons, we're gonna remove them from the document, add the new weapons to the list, and then put everything back into the document so we have the right structure. So item container is the first thing we're gonna make. And we're going to instantiate it with the constructor item container here. There we go. So first of all, we need to tell this because we're going to make a, what is it called, a XML serializer, and this XML serializer needs to know which kind of items it can serialize. And when I say serialize, it's like when you take something from a class, for example, and you make it into an XML document. So I have a document outside here somewhere that I can pull in. So if you look here, for example, and we go to the, what should it be, equipment class here. If you look at this document here, you'll see that, well, it has an item type, which is also stored in the item here, quality, which is also up in item, sprite neutral and highlighted. Basically, I should go to items, easier to explain. Here, so you can see all the fields that are here, item type, quality, and so on, to description. Well, these are all something that goes into the document like this. So it actually takes this and converts it into this XML document. And we need to tell the XML serializer that it can actually take a class type like item or a class type like weapon and make it into an XML document. See if I can find my stuff again. Here we go. So what is an XML document? Well, an XML document basically consists of different nodes. So up here we have the encoding and the version of XML, which is not really important. It just needs to be in the top of every XML document. After that we have the item container, and as you can see, we already, this item container is actually the item container class here. If I could find it. There we go. This is the item container class, right? So that node I just pointed out here is actually made from this class, and inside this class we have, just gonna zoom in so you can see better, inside that class we actually have some different tags here. We have our equipment, which is this list here. We have our weapons, which is this list, and we're going to have our consumables, which is everything inside this list. So all the items that goes inside this list will be underneath the consumables tag here, and everything that goes in under equipment list will be under the equipment tag here, and the weapon, and so on. So the reason that they are under these tags is because when we load everything in, we will load it into an item container as well. So all our weapons in this document will go into the weapons list, and all our equipment will go into the equipment list. So it's easier for us to find some equipment, for example, or a weapon by looking through the different lists. So in an XML document, we also have this container tag, and there after this, there are some schemas we need to follow and everything. And basically, you don't need to know what it is, because we're gonna make this for you. Or I'm gonna write this for you. You're just gonna copy it. But as you can see, it just tells you that it's gonna use this prefix down here under every single item, and it needs this one to be able to serialize our classes. So all XML documents basically need like some kind of schema they can follow, basically. Other than that, we have some different nodes. This is a node. It starts with this tag here and ends with that tag, and then we have the name of the node, and the node also needs to end. So when the node ends, it has this slash in front of it. So all this inside from equipment here all the way to here is a child elements of this. Then we have item, which is the class, and the type here is equipment because it's the underclass. So item is the superclass, and equipment is the base class. And then there is like a node here for every single property we have in our script. So that's basically it. It's like all these nodes here are, all the inner nodes here are properties or fields, which are all these we can see here, and basically these outer nodes here are the class, which is this one up here, item, and the ID XSI type here is the subclass, which is this one. So this is going to be generated for us. All this is going to be generated for us. I'm not going to go into more details about XML because this is not an XML tutorial, but I hope you have kind of an idea of how everything is going to be fit together. Because that's basically why we made all this structure here, is because we want that structure inside our XML document. So where were we? We were creating a not item manager. That's what we were. So about those types. So we need to define the types that we can actually serialize into the XML document. We can write type. If you don't have it, right click on it, resolve, and then include using that system. It goes up here using system here if you don't have it already. And then you're gonna make the brackets because we need an array of types, and item types equals type of equipment, comma type of what is it, weapon, and comma type of consumable. There we go. And then we need to finish this one off. So now we are going to tell this item, the serialize, that it can serialize equipment, weapons, and consumables. When we've done that, we need to create our serializer. So we need to make an XML serializer, if I can spell. And if you don't have it, XML serializer, you can right click on it, resolve, and include using system.xml serialization. Or if you don't have Visual Studio, you can write using system.xml.serialization up here. That's our serializer for serializing. And we're gonna say new XML serializer. And then we need to tell it what kind of type it should serialize. We're gonna give it type of item container. So that's the type, and the default namespaces it's going to use, it's the item types we just made. So these are the item types we're going to use. Oops, sorry, it's item types. Just going to put an S here, then it should work. Yes. Again, if you want to know more about the XML structure, you can of course always read up on it, but I'm not going to go all the way through what XML is. So now we have created our serializer, which can actually serialize our classes into an XML document and the other way around. And we're going to say our item container equals serializer dot deserialize, because we need to take everything that is in a document and put it into our item container. And we need to make a file stream, of course. So right now we need to tell it where this XML document is, and we can't do that right now because we haven't made our document yet. So I'm gonna save here, and I'm gonna jump back into Unity, and out here I'm actually gonna make a new folder. So I'm gonna right click, I'm gonna create, I'm gonna make a new folder, and I'm gonna create streaming assets. And it's very, very important that you call it the exact name, streaming assets, like this, streaming assets, because this is a folder that is going to be included in the build whenever we build our game. We could put it in resources folder, which we'll add later, but I had some problems actually reaching the XML document from a build version of the game, and I figured that streaming assets works better just for testing now and everything. So you can see here, if we would make streaming assets, create, I don't know what you can do in here. Let's just right click, show in folder, and we can go to streaming assets and make a new, yeah, actually we should just do this right now. So go to your streaming assets, right click, click show in folder, and then open up where Unity project is. Go into streaming assets and right click, click new, and then make a text document, and then call it items.xml. Oops, not without that apostrophe thing in the end. There we go. And just say yes that it wants to change the type. So we have an XML file here. So as you can see, we have items XML here inside streaming assets. And if I would build, I don't want to run it though. If I would build this one, actually I don't even know where it places it. So if we go here, let's say build and select desktop, test game, and build it, you will see that everything inside streaming assets will be built with this build here, so that we can access it from within our game. Okay, so if we would open test game data, we have this streaming assets folder, and as you can see, item.xml is right in here now. So that's why we actually need to put it into streaming assets, so that we can actually reach it when our game is built, because this one is built with. Later I might figure out how to put it in resources and read it properly, because when it is in streaming assets and you deploy your game, it's not stopping anyone from going in here and changing the XML file from in here. But for now it works, if you get my drift. Yes, what were we doing? We were trying to access that thing. So now we have inside our streaming assets folder an items XML document. So this document needs to be read, and we need to create a file stream to do that. So here we are gonna say file stream, and if you don't have it, right click and resolve using system.io, and if you couldn't do that, then just write using system.io up here, and we're gonna fs, and we're gonna say equals new file stream to instantiate it, and then we need to give it the path to our streaming assets, and we can basically do that with saying path.combine application dot streaming assets path, comma, items dot XML, comma, file access. What we want to do, we want to say file mode, not for Kitty, but file mode dot open, because we want to open the document and read it. So what did I just do? I made a file stream which can be used to read files from the hard drive. Then I'm gonna say path.combine because it needs the path. It's gonna look in the streaming asset path folder because that's a standard thing in Unity. So application.streaming asset path folder, and then it's gonna say items.xml. It's gonna look for the XML file there, and it's gonna try to open the file. Then I'm going to say, well, all the items inside that items XML file, because we might have made some items before and we want to add some more items. All the items in there, I'm going to deserialize them into my item container so that I have them somewhere, and then later I'm going to take all the items from the container and put them back into the document. So let's say we load out 3 items and we add one more to the container, so we have 4 items, and then we write all 4 back to the items XML file. So now, right now we are deserializing. I'm just going to give it the file stream, and then it's going to complain here, I think. Yeah. So we need to cast it into an item container, because this one returns something. What does it actually return? It's gonna, yeah. So it returns an object, and we're just going to convert that object into an item container, so that we actually have our item container here with all our files in it. And when we have done with that, we're going to say serializer dot serialize stream fs, and the object is the item container. So then we're going to serialize it when we've done that. Okay, so we need to prepare our items XML document a little, because there was something we needed in it. So if we open up, can't we open this in Visual Studio? Would be better to open it here. Maybe I can't do that. The streaming asset, there we go. Okay, so basically we need to write some information in here before we can use the document, because the XML serializer basically just needs some namespaces and some information to be able to work with this document, because it needs to know how it should serialize the different items. First of all, we need to put in the XML version here, so we can basically just write, this is just a weird notation, but XML version equals 1.0, and we need to tell it what kind of encoding we need, and the encoding that was there as default before was Windows dash 1252, I think it was. There we go. So this is just some standard XML notations up here. If you're more interested in XML and you want to know more about it, then you can find a lot of things online, as you can for all things. I'm just not very good at explaining it, and I'm not working a lot with it, and this is not an XML tutorial, so I'm not going to go into depth with how everything works. So the next thing we need to add here is simply just the item container tag here. So we're just going to say item container, and then we need to add some attributes for the default namespace declaration, and this is basically what it needs to generate those serialize this document. So we can say xmlns colon xsi, and it equals www.v3.org, and which one is it? It's that 2001 schema instance. There we go. So this is basically what you need inside your document for it to work. So we need the item container to wrap everything inside, and how we should handle the objects, and then just the XML version up here. So you can basically save this and jump back into Unity. So now that we have created our document, we can jump back into Item Manager here, and in here we can keep on writing our code, we need to close the file stream when we have opened it. File stream close. And then we need to make new equipment depending on the correct category. So we need to make a switch case here on the category. And we need to select the correct category here, and we need to add the correct items into the correct spot in the container. So if we have equipment, we're gonna say item container dot equipment, because our item container has some different, remember it has weapons, equipment and consumables, and if that one we're going to make is going to be an equipment, then we need to add it to the equipment here. So gonna say equipment dot add. We're gonna add a new equipment, and the equipment wants some different things. It wants a item name, wants description, item type, quality, sprite neutral, sprite highlighted. It wants a max size, intellect, agility, stamina, and strength. And we need to make one more parenthesis here. Of course, the item type variable. There we go. So now we have added a equipment to our we have added something to our equipment container, and basically we need to do the exact same things, except we need to add attack speed, for example, to our weapon. So we can just copy this one, paste it down here with our weapon, I think, and after here we need to give attack speed, and we need to change this to new weapon, and it needs to be added to the weapons list instead. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. So now if the categories, select the category out here, let's see here, if this selected category here is weapon, well then we're gonna add something to our weapons list in there, and we can basically copy this one and paste it again. And there's gonna be some different here. We're gonna have max size, and we're not gonna have all this. We're gonna have until max size, and then we're gonna have health, and we're gonna have mana, as far as I remember. And this one is gonna be added to the consumables container, and we're gonna create a new consumable. There we go. So now we can actually create our different equipments here, but right now we're not writing them to the XML document. Right now we are only generating them, or we are only reading our XML document here, and down here we are actually just generating our weapons and adding them to the item container. But now we need to take them from the item container and write them back into our XML document. And it's fairly simple to do that. We're just going to say file stream equals new file stream. We're going to say exactly the same thing, path.combine application.streaming assets path, and we're going to say items.xml. We can say file mode, and instead of opening we're going to say create. Gonna have name there, should be new. There we go. And serializer, serialize file stream item container. So the serialize needs the file stream, and it's the item container we are serializing through the file stream, which has a connection to our XML document. And then we're gonna say file stream.close. So now we should actually have the functionality for adding items into our XML document. So let's save this and give it a try. When we're back inside Unity, we can start setting up the item we want to create. So I want to try to create a two-handed weapon, and I'm going to set the quality to epic, and the category is just going to be weapon because I want it under the weapons category. So right now we don't have any sprites, but we are just saving the XML document, so we can actually write whatever here. So we're just gonna write a test here called weapon neutral, and we're gonna be weapon highlight. Later we are gonna put some sprites inside some folders here, and we are gonna write the correct path here so we can access them. And the item name is just gonna be epic weapon. Description: this is an epic weapon, and the max size is gonna be 1. Intellect, it's gonna have 10 intellect, 10 agility, 14 stamina, 15 strength, and the attack speed is gonna be it's 15 or something. It's just a 10. So down here we have health and mana, and basically whenever you create a new weapon, you can see that the category has already been decided here, which means that it's not going to take into account those variables we don't need. For example, we can look at our item manager here, and we can see that we have our if you are using consumables, then we're going to give in the health and mana. But if we are using a weapon, if we're creating a weapon here, we're not going to use the health and mana for anything, which means that you can basically punch in whatever you want to here without it's going to have effect on your item you're creating. So to be able to to create this item, we need to set this button so that it triggers the create item function we have made in here, because right now we are not triggering this function anyhow. So we need to click on the button, sorry, and we're gonna go to the on-click event here, click the plus, and the plus makes a new area here for adding an item. So just take the item manager and drag it here, go to the function and then select the item manager and then select create item. So when you've done that, can click on the item manager, make sure that you are happy with everything that is here, and then we're gonna play our game, and we're gonna click the create item, and we didn't get any exceptions or anything, so I guess that's good. So if we close that down and open up our IDE again, Visual Studio or Mono Developer, see that it says that there has been changes to items.html. So we can say yes to these, and then we can go to streaming assets and open it, and as you can see, we have just created a new weapon. So in our weapons list we have a two-hand, which is epic. Sprite uses weapon neutral because I misspelled it apparently. We have a max size, and we have a max size of 1. We have item name epic weapon, description, this is an epic weapon, intellect, and everything else I punched in. But I can see something is missing. We have a sprite neutral here, weapon neutral, but we are missing one thing. Let's see, we are missing our weapon highlight. So let's see why that one didn't go in. So because it doesn't have that weapon highlighted, it might be an error inside weapon here. So if we go to weapon, see here we're not setting anything, it should be inside item maybe. Here we go. So here we're setting the sprite neutral and the sprite highlight, and here's the error. As you can see, we have sprite highlighted set to sprite highlight with large S, and we want to set it to sprite highlighted with a small s, not capital S. So need to remove this. Let's save one more time, jump back into Unity, and let's see, stop running our game, and let's try again if I can spell correctly this time. Weapon normal on weapon highlight. So let's try again. Actually I want to go to this document first, and I want to delete everything so we don't have the item that was wrong. Save this, back into Unity, and let's try one more time. Click create, and let's open up our script here, and as you can see now we have two-hand epic, weapon normal, weapon highlight, and everything looks as it should. So now we don't have that error anymore. And as you can see, even though we lift out that other scheme here, it just adds it by itself, so we don't need to write in the beginning. But I know we need to write this one for this conversion here, to work. So that is basically how we can create our items into an XML document. I'm gonna stop this part for now, and in the next part we're gonna look at how we can actually use this XML document for something useful.